In the dim glow of a dying star, where the universe seemed to hold its breath, a human soldier named Kale found himself standing face to face with an alien princess whose beauty defied every description he had ever known. Her skin shimmered like liquid moonlight, shifting hues with each subtle movement, and her eyes, those piercing otherworldly eyes, seemed to see straight through him, as if she could read not just his thoughts but the very essence of his soul. Kale first encountered her on a mission that was supposed to be routine, securing a remote outpost on the edge of uncharted space. The outpost, little more than a collection of prefabricated structures perched precariously on jagged cliffs overlooking an endless expanse of crystalline terrain, had been abandoned by its previous occupants under mysterious circumstances. But when Kale's unit arrived, they discovered something far more extraordinary than empty halls or scavenged supplies: a lone survivor who called herself Leora. She claimed to be royalty from a distant planet decimated by war, though none of them believed her at first. How could they? She looked nothing like any being they'd ever seen before, her presence both ethereal and commanding, as though she belonged to another realm entirely. The soldiers were wary at first, unsure whether to trust this strange creature who spoke in soft, melodic tones and moved with an elegance that made their clunky combat gear seem laughably crude. Orders came down from command to keep her close for questioning, but no one wanted to take responsibility for guarding her, not after rumors spread about how some of the men couldn't sleep, haunted by dreams of her voice whispering secrets they couldn't understand. That's when Kale volunteered, brushing off warnings from his comrades with a shrug. "She's just another refugee," he said, though even then, deep inside, he knew it wasn't true. What started as duty quickly turned into something else entirely. Every time Kale met Leora's gaze, he felt a pull he couldn't explain, a magnetic force drawing him closer despite his instincts screaming caution. At first, he tried to resist, telling himself it was foolishness, weakness even, to feel anything for someone so different, so alien. Yet there was something about the way she tilted her head when she listened, the way her translucent fingers traced patterns in the air as if painting invisible pictures only she could see. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, Kale began to let his guard down. They spent hours talking, or rather, Kale talked while Leora listened intently, her expression unreadable yet somehow encouraging. He told her stories of Earth, of fields of green stretching endlessly beneath blue skies, of oceans vast enough to swallow entire worlds. He described cities filled with lights and sounds, people rushing past one another without truly connecting. And all the while, Leora watched him with those luminous eyes, nodding occasionally, asking questions that cut deeper than he expected. "Do you miss it?" she asked once, her voice barely above a whisper. "Your home." "Yes," Kale admitted, surprised by the honesty bubbling up within him. "But sometimes I wonder, do I miss what's real, or just what I remember?" Leora didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached out, her hand hovering inches above his own. For a moment, Kale thought she might touch him, but then she withdrew, leaving behind only the faintest trace of warmth. It was maddening, intoxicating, and utterly confusing, all at once. He found himself wanting more, craving moments like these where words weren't necessary, where silence spoke louder than anything either of them could say. As days turned into weeks, Kale realized he wasn't the only one affected by her presence. His fellow soldiers grew restless, uneasy around her, their unease manifesting in muttered curses and furtive glances whenever she passed by. Some accused her of playing mind games, manipulating them with her unnatural charm. Others whispered darker theories, suggesting she might be spying for enemy factions, gathering information to use against humanity. Kale dismissed these claims outright, though part of him wondered why he felt so protective of her. Was it loyalty to his assignment, or something deeper? One evening, as twilight painted the sky in shades of violet and gold, Kale walked Leora to the edge of the outpost, where jagged rocks jutted out over the glowing crystal plains below. They stood side by side, neither speaking, until finally Leora broke the silence. "Why do you stay with me, Kale?" she asked, her voice carrying a weight he hadn't heard before. "You don't have to protect me. I'm a soldier," he replied simply. "It's my job." "But you've chosen to stand closer than others," she pressed, turning to look at him fully now. "Why?" Kale hesitated, caught off guard by the intensity of her question. He opened his mouth to respond, then closed it again, unsure of what to say. Because he felt drawn to her? Because she reminded him of everything beautiful and fragile in a universe drowning in chaos? Or because, somewhere along the way, he'd stopped seeing her as an alien princess and started seeing her as something more? Before he could form an answer, Leora took a step forward, closing the distance between them. Her hand rose tentatively, fingertips brushing against his cheek, sending a shiver racing down his spine. "You humans are strange," she murmured, a hint of amusement in her tone. "So much emotion hidden beneath your armor. And you're not." Kale countered, his voice rougher than intended. "Every word you speak feels like a riddle, every glance like a challenge. Do you ever show anyone your true self?" Her smile faltered, replaced by an expression he couldn't quite decipher. Sadness, longing, regret. Whatever it was, it lingered long enough for Kale to realize she carried burdens heavier than his own. In that instant, he understood. She wasn't just an alien princess seeking refuge. She was a survivor, bearing scars invisible to the naked eye. And maybe, just maybe, she needed him as much as he needed her. Without thinking, Kale reached out, taking her hand in his. Her skin was cool to the touch, smooth like polished stone, yet trembling slightly, as if uncertain whether to trust him. For a moment, neither moved, locked in a silent exchange that transcended language. Then, slowly, Leora intertwined her fingers with his, completing the connection. The world around them seemed to fade away, leaving only the two of them, suspended in a fragile bubble of understanding. "Tell me," Kale said softly, his thumb brushing against the back of her hand. "Why do you let me hold yours?" Leora's lips parted, as if searching for words, but no sound emerged. Instead, she leaned closer, her breath mingling with his, and for the first time since their meeting, Kale allowed himself to hope. The days that followed blurred together in a haze of stolen moments and guarded confessions. Each encounter between Kale and Leora carried an unspoken weight, a tension thick enough to suffocate yet too precious to relinquish. Their connection deepened with every shared glance, every accidental brush of fingers, yet it remained tethered to a fragile thread of restraint. Neither dared to acknowledge the growing bond aloud, afraid that naming it might shatter the delicate balance they'd built. Kale wrestled with his emotions constantly, torn between duty and desire. As a soldier, he was trained to follow orders without question, to prioritize the greater good over personal feelings. Yet here he was, finding solace in the company of an alien princess, someone who represented everything unfamiliar and forbidden. During briefings with his superiors, he struggled to focus, his mind drifting back to her luminous eyes and the way she seemed to understand him without needing words. At night, lying awake in his quarters, he replayed their conversations in his head, dissecting every nuance, every flicker of emotion on her face. Did she feel the same pull? Or was he merely projecting his own longing onto her? For Leora, the struggle was equally profound, though rooted in entirely different origins. Raised in a society where emotions were considered vulnerabilities to be suppressed, she had learned early on to mask her true feelings behind layers of decorum and diplomacy. Yet with Kale, those walls crumbled piece by piece, exposing parts of herself she hadn't realized still existed. When he held her hand, she felt a warmth unlike anything she'd experienced before, a sensation that both thrilled and terrified her. What did it mean to crave such closeness with someone so fundamentally different? Was it rebellion against her upbringing, or something deeper? Their surroundings amplified the tension. The outpost, once bustling with activity, now felt suffocatingly small, its metallic corridors echoing with whispers and speculation. Rumors spread like wildfire among the troops, fueled by jealous glares and hushed accusations. "He's compromised," some muttered, casting disdainful looks in Kale's direction whenever he escorted Leora to meals or walks outside. Others speculated about Leora herself, labeling her everything from a spy to a witch capable of ensnaring minds. The hostility grew palpable, forcing Kale to position himself as a shield between her and the mounting animosity. Despite the external pressure, their bond continued to flourish in quiet defiance. One afternoon, during a rare moment of solitude, Kale led Leora to a secluded alcove overlooking the crystalline plains. The sun hung low on the horizon, casting elongated shadows across the jagged landscape. Sitting cross-legged on the cold metal floor, they shared stories of their respective homes, tales of laughter, loss, and resilience. Leora described her planet's vibrant festivals, where light dances illuminated the night skies, while Kale recounted childhood memories of chasing fireflies in rural fields back on Earth. These exchanges became sacred rituals, moments where their differences dissolved into shared humanity, or perhaps something beyond. Yet beneath the surface, doubts gnawed relentlessly. Kale questioned whether his attachment to Leora stemmed from genuine affection or mere fascination with the exotic. Could he truly love someone so alien, so enigmatic? And if he did, what future could they possibly have? Humanity's history was rife with tales of star-crossed lovers doomed by circumstance. Why should their story end any differently? Meanwhile, Leora grappled with fears of her own. If she allowed herself to fall for Kale, would she be betraying her people, abandoning her responsibilities as a princess? Or worse, would embracing this connection make her vulnerable to manipulation, jeopardizing not only herself but also the remnants of her shattered world? These internal conflicts manifested in subtle ways. Kale often found himself pulling away mid-conversation, retreating into stoic silence when emotions threatened to overwhelm him. Leora, sensing his withdrawal, mirrored his actions, withdrawing into herself, her radiant presence dimming ever so slightly. Still, neither could sever the tie entirely. Like moths drawn to flame, they gravitated toward each other, unable to resist the magnetic pull binding them together. One evening, under the watchful gaze of twin moons, Kale finally voiced the question haunting him. "Do you think we can ever escape this?" he asked, his voice barely audible over the wind whistling through the outpost's ventilation ducts. "This, whatever it is between us. Do you think it's possible for beings like us to find peace?" Leora turned to him, her luminous eyes reflecting the pale light cascading from the heavens. "I don't know," she admitted, her voice tinged with sorrow. "Perhaps our worlds aren't meant to collide. Perhaps we're destined to remain strangers forever." Kale clenched his fists, frustration bubbling beneath his carefully constructed facade. "Then why does it hurt so much?" he demanded, his voice cracking under the strain. "Why does it feel like I'm losing something I never even had?" Leora didn't answer immediately. Instead, she reached out, placing a tentative hand on his shoulder. The gesture, simple yet profoundly intimate, sent a jolt coursing through him. For a fleeting second, he imagined wrapping his arms around her, holding her close until all their doubts dissolved into oblivion. But reality intervened, reminding him of the chasm separating them, an abyss carved not only by biology but also by culture, politics, and war. Unbeknownst to both of them, forces beyond their control conspired to test their resolve. Reports filtered in from command headquarters, detailing increased activity near the border zones. Tensions between factions escalated, threatening to ignite another galactic conflict. Meanwhile, shadowy figures within the outpost began monitoring Kale and Leora more closely, their intentions unclear but undeniably sinister. Whispers of betrayal echoed through the corridors, planting seeds of mistrust that threatened to unravel the fragile trust they'd cultivated. Caught in the crossfire of external pressures and internal turmoil, Kale and Leora found themselves teetering on the precipice of decision. The choices ahead loomed large, each path fraught with uncertainty. To sever their connection would mean sacrificing a part of themselves, erasing the brief glimpse of happiness they'd found amidst chaos. To embrace it fully, however, risked exposing them to dangers neither could anticipate. As the universe tightened its grip around them, they clung to each other desperately, knowing full well that their love might prove both their greatest strength and their ultimate downfall. Under the oppressive weight of looming war clouds, the outpost transformed into a fortress of paranoia and suspicion. Soldiers paced nervously, their weapons always at the ready, while encrypted messages crackled incessantly over comms channels. Command issued strict curfews and heightened security protocols, yet the tension seethed just beneath the surface, simmering like molten lava waiting to erupt. For Kale and Leora, this escalating atmosphere of dread added another layer of complexity to their already fraught relationship. Every interaction became fraught with peril, each stolen moment a potential flashpoint for disaster. One evening, as Kale escorted Leora back to her quarters, they encountered Captain Voss, a hardened veteran known for his unyielding adherence to protocol. His steely gaze swept over them, lingering suspiciously on their clasped hands before narrowing into a glare. "Soldier," he barked, stepping forward with deliberate menace. "You're needed in briefing room 3 immediately. Leave the alien here." Kale stiffened, instinctively tightening his grip on Leora's hand. "With respect, sir, I'll ensure her safety first," he replied, his voice steady despite the knot forming in his stomach. Voss snorted derisively. "Safety? From what? Your infatuation is compromising this mission, and you know it. Step aside." The confrontation froze the corridor, drawing the attention of nearby soldiers who exchanged uneasy glances. Leora stepped forward, releasing Cale's hand and raising her chin defiantly. "I am not a pawn in your games, human," she declared, her melodic voice laced with steel. "Nor am I a threat. Treat me accordingly." Voss sneered, clearly unimpressed. "Watch your tongue, princess. You're tolerated only because higher-ups deem you useful. Don't push your luck." With that, he turned sharply and strode away, leaving a trail of hostility in his wake. Cale exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair as he watched Voss disappear around a corner. "Are you okay?" he asked softly, turning back to Leora. She nodded, though her eyes betrayed the storm brewing within. "Your captain doesn't trust me," she observed matter-of-factly. "Neither do many others. Is this wise, Cale? Should we continue? Whatever this is." He hesitated, torn between logic and instinct. "No," he admitted eventually, his voice heavy with resignation. "It's not wise. But I can't stop, Leora. Not now." Her expression softened, though sadness lingered in her gaze. "Neither can I." As the days unfolded, the situation deteriorated further. Intelligence reports revealed that rival factions had taken notice of Leora's presence, viewing her as a bargaining chip in upcoming negotiations, or worse, a target for assassination. Armed patrols doubled around the perimeter, and surveillance drones buzzed incessantly overhead, casting ominous shadows across the outpost's metallic expanse. Even the once vibrant colors of the crystalline plains seemed muted under the pall of impending conflict. Amidst this chaos, Cale and Leora sought refuge in fleeting moments of intimacy. They met in forgotten corners of the outpost, places untouched by prying eyes, sharing fragments of their souls in hurried whispers. One night, sheltering in an abandoned storage bay illuminated only by the faint glow of emergency lights, Cale confessed his deepest fear. "If anything happens to you," he trailed off, his throat constricting. "I couldn't bear it, Leora. I'd lose myself completely." She placed a gentle hand on his chest, feeling the rapid beat of his heart beneath her palm. "And what of your duty, Cale? Your comrades? Would you abandon them for me?" He swallowed hard, grappling with the impossible choice laid bare before him. "I swore an oath to serve humanity," he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. "But you've shown me a truth I never knew existed. A truth worth fighting for." Tears glistened in Leora's eyes, though she refused to let them fall. "Then fight, Cale," she urged, her voice trembling with conviction. "Fight for both. For us. But promise me one thing. Don't sacrifice yourself needlessly. Promise me you'll live, no matter what happens." He nodded, pulling her into an embrace that spoke volumes where words failed. In that moment, surrounded by darkness and uncertainty, they made an unspoken pact, to face whatever lay ahead together, united by a bond stronger than fear or doubt. Yet even as they clung to hope, danger lurked closer than ever. Unknown to them, a traitor operated within the outpost's ranks, feeding classified information to hostile forces eager to exploit the volatile situation. Shadows moved silently through the corridors, unseen eyes observing every interaction, every whispered confession. The clock ticked inexorably toward a reckoning neither Cale nor Leora could foresee, a collision of destinies that would test the limits of their courage and devotion. In the heart of despair, Cale found himself alone in the dimly lit control room, staring at screens flickering with static and fragmented communications. His mind raced with the weight of decisions yet to be made, each option a labyrinth of potential consequences. Outside, the outpost buzzed with the hum of preparations for an impending assault, the air thick with the scent of ozone and fear. Soldiers moved with mechanical precision, their faces masks of grim determination, yet Cale felt adrift, untethered from the collective resolve surrounding him. His thoughts drifted inevitably to Leora, her image etched vividly in his mind, the way her luminescent skin caught the light, the haunting melody of her laughter, the quiet strength that radiated from her presence. She had become his anchor, the beacon guiding him through the storm of chaos and uncertainty. Yet now, faced with the enormity of the choices before him, he questioned whether his attachment to her was a gift or a curse. Could he truly protect her, fulfill his duty as a soldier, and preserve the fragile bond they shared? A sudden commotion snapped him out of his reverie. Alarms blared, red lights flashing urgently as shouts echoed through the corridors. Cale sprang to his feet, adrenaline surging through his veins. Rushing to the main console, he scanned the incoming alerts, his heart sinking as he pieced together the grim reality. Enemy forces had breached the perimeter, advancing with ruthless efficiency. The outpost was under siege. Without hesitation, Cale grabbed his rifle and sprinted toward Leora's quarters, his mind a whirlwind of conflicting priorities. Reaching her door, he pounded urgently, relief flooding through him as she opened it, her eyes wide with alarm. "We need to move," he said tersely, grabbing her hand and pulling her into the chaos outside. Together, they navigated the frenetic corridors, dodging bursts of laser fire and the deafening roar of explosions. The battle raged with ferocious intensity, transforming the once sturdy outpost into a crumbling fortress of smoke and flames. Soldiers fought valiantly, their camaraderie forged in the crucible of shared peril. Amidst the carnage, Cale and Leora found brief moments of respite in the shadows, their breaths ragged, their hearts pounding in tandem. "Stay close," Cale urged, his voice firm despite the turmoil raging within him. Leora nodded, her usual composure faltering under the relentless assault. "Cale," she whispered, gripping his arm tightly. "If we don't survive this—" "No," he interrupted fiercely, cupping her face in his hands. "Don't say it. We will survive. Together." Their resolve bolstered by desperation, they pushed forward, navigating the treacherous landscape of war. Cale's training kicked in, his movements precise and calculated as he shielded Leora from harm. Yet with each step, the cost of their survival grew heavier. Friends fell, their sacrifices etching indelible scars on Cale's soul. The line between duty and devotion blurred, each decision a gamble with fate. In the midst of the chaos, a revelation struck Cale with the force of a thunderclap. The traitor within their ranks had been exposed, their betrayal laying bare the fragility of trust in times of war. The knowledge ignited a fierce determination within him, a resolve to reclaim the integrity of their mission and safeguard the future he envisioned with Leora. "We need to reach the command center," he shouted over the din, steering Leora toward their objective. Their journey was fraught with peril, each corridor a gauntlet of danger and deception. Yet amidst the destruction, moments of grace emerged, soldiers risking their lives to cover their retreat, fleeting glimpses of humanity in the darkest hour. Cale's faith in his comrades rekindled, bolstered by their unwavering spirit. Leora, too, found strength in unexpected allies, her presence inspiring acts of courage that defied the odds. As they neared the command center, Cale paused, his gaze locking with Leora's. "Whatever happens next," he said, his voice steady despite the turmoil raging around them, "remember this, you are not alone. We stand together, no matter the cost." Her luminous eyes shimmered with unshed tears, yet her nod was resolute. Hand in hand, they stepped into the unknown, ready to confront the challenges ahead with unwavering determination. The outcome remained uncertain, the path fraught with peril, yet in that moment, Cale and Leora stood united, their bond a testament to the enduring power of love and resilience in the face of overwhelming adversity. As Cale and Leora entered the command center, they were met with a scene of controlled chaos. Soldiers worked feverishly at their stations, monitoring screens that displayed the enemy's relentless advance. Captain Voss stood at the forefront, barking orders with an intensity that bordered on desperation. The air crackled with tension as every decision carried life or death stakes. Cale wasted no time stepping forward, his voice cutting through the din. "Captain, we know who the traitor is," he said firmly, drawing immediate attention. He quickly explained how intercepted transmissions revealed the identity of the mole, a technician named Rin, whose family had been held hostage by the enemy faction. Betrayal for survival, it was a cruel twist of fate, but it didn't excuse what Rin had done. Voss's eyes narrowed, his jaw tightening. Without hesitation, he dispatched a squad to apprehend Rin while turning his focus back to the battle unfolding outside. "We're outnumbered and outgunned," he admitted grimly, "but we still have one advantage. knowledge of this terrain. We need to hold them off long enough for reinforcements to arrive. Leora stepped forward then, her presence commanding despite the chaos around her. There's another way, she said, her melodic voice cutting through the room like a blade. All eyes turned to her, some skeptical, others curious. My people develop technology capable of disrupting enemy communications and weapon systems. If you allow me access to your systems, I can interface with them and create interference. The soldiers exchanged uneasy glances. Trusting an alien, even one they'd reluctantly accepted into their ranks, felt like a gamble none of them wanted to take. But Kale stood beside her, unwavering. She's our best chance, he declared, meeting Voss's steely gaze. If we don't act now, we lose everything. For a moment, silence hung heavy in the air. Then Voss nodded curtly. Do it, he ordered. But if this backfires, soldier, you'll answer for it. With no time to waste, Leora moved to the main console, her fingers dancing over the unfamiliar controls with practiced precision. Kale hovered nearby, ready to defend her if needed, as she accessed the Outpost systems and began integrating her own tech. Her movements were fluid, almost hypnotic, as lines of code scrolled across the screen in patterns only she could decipher. Minutes stretched into eternity as the sounds of combat grew louder outside. Explosions rocked the walls, sending debris raining down from the ceiling. Still, Leora remained focused, her luminous eyes fixed on the task at hand. Finally, after what felt like hours, she let out a breathless whisper, "It's done." At first, nothing seemed to change. Then, slowly, reports began flooding in from the battlefield. Enemy drones faltered mid-air, crashing to the ground in heaps of twisted metal. Weapons fire sputtered and died, leaving their adversaries scrambling in confusion. Cheers erupted among the defenders as the tide of the battle shifted dramatically in their favor. But the victory came at a cost. As the dust settled and the last pockets of resistance were subdued, the toll became painfully clear. Bodies littered the battlefield, comrades lost in the fight for survival. Kale walked among them, his heart heavy with grief yet buoyed by the knowledge that their sacrifice hadn't been in vain. When he returned to the command center, he found Leora standing alone, her expression somber as she gazed out at the ravaged landscape. "They fought bravely," she murmured, sensing his approach. "Your people. They inspire courage even in the face of despair." Kale nodded, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "And you saved us all. None of this would have been possible without you." Her lips curved into a faint smile, though sadness lingered in her eyes. "At what cost, Kale? How many more lives must be lost before peace becomes more than just a dream?" He didn't have an answer, not yet. But as he pulled her into his arms, holding her close against the weight of the world, he made a silent promise. Whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever battles remained to be fought, they would face them together. She wasn't alone anymore, and neither was he. Weeks later, the outpost began to rebuild. Reinforcements arrived, bringing supplies and support, along with word of a tentative ceasefire brokered by galactic diplomats. Among the negotiators was a delegation from Leora's home planet, survivors eager to reconnect with their lost princess. For the first time since her arrival, hope flickered on the horizon, not just for humanity, but for her people as well. Standing on the edge of the crystalline plains under a sky painted with twin sunsets, Kale and Leora shared a quiet moment of reflection. The wind whispered softly around them, carrying with it the promise of new beginnings. "What happens now?" Kale asked, his voice tinged with both hope and uncertainty. Leora turned to him, her luminous eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "Now," she said softly, "we build bridges. Between our worlds, our peoples. Together, we forge a future where love isn't bound by borders or differences." Kale smiled, reaching out to take her hand. This time, there was no hesitation, no fear. Their fingers intertwined naturally, as though they were always meant to fit together. "Then let's start building," he replied, his voice steady with resolve. As they walked back toward the outpost, side by side, the scars of war still visible but healing, Kale knew one thing for certain. Love had brought them here, through fire and shadow, and it would guide them forward. Together, they weren't just survivors, they were pioneers, charting a path toward a brighter tomorrow. And in each other's arms, they had already found their happily ever after.